Hello again. My name is Gary Schneidkraut, Vice President of Wine and Spirits here at Protis Global. And I'm here today with a friend of mine, Vice President of Marketing for DiSaronno's International USA, Edgardo Carias.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for taking the time, Ed. I really appreciate it. You've had a really extensive background in the spirits industry. You spent over 2 decades leading marketing initiatives at Brown Forman. And during your time there, you represented brands in the whiskey category, along with vodka, tequila, liqueur. And since 2023, you have been the Vice President of Marketing for the rapidly growing portfolio at DiSaronno's International USA. Today, we're going to discuss how you got into the spirits industry, why you're bullish on the DiSaronno portfolio in the U.S., which again, rapidly growing, and how to stay nimble in this uniquely challenging time in the spirits industry. But first, I would love if you can tell us a little bit more about yourself and your journey into the spirits industry.
Thanks, Gary. Thanks for inviting me to this conversation. As you mentioned, my name is Edgardo Carias. Everyone calls me Ed. I've been in beverage alcohol since 1999. I've had an opportunity to really, I think, grow up in this business. I started out working for an agency, and all of our clients were beverage alcohol clients, and I started out in bars, handing out keychains and doing promotions and learning about what consumers wanted from their beverages, and kind of working my way from the agency side to the supplier side, multicultural marketing, regional marketing, national marketing, and now I'm kind of in a VP role. So I really feel like I've gotten an opportunity to work across all facets of the business: distributor management, brand management, mergers and acquisitions, and it's been a fun ride. It's been a good 25 years.
This is the best industry you can be in. It's fun, it's relatable, it's exciting. Did you know that you wanted to go into spirits, or was your background marketing and this agency you were with just happened to be alc heavy?
No, that's exactly right. I went to a small state school in Southern California. Shout out to the Matadors of Cal State Northridge. And, the only beverage companies that recruited at my university was sodas like Coca-Cola and Pepsi, maybe beer companies, but they were looking more for drivers and salespeople, not really on the marketing side. And so as I honed in on communications with an emphasis in marketing, I really saw myself going in more of a traditional marketing route. Getting out of college, I needed some agency experience. I was going out for different roles, and the agency that I landed on kind of gave me that first opportunity and really kind of introduced me to beverage alcohol as an industry. And, when I talk to younger folks that are exploring this, I say, you'll probably know in the first year whether this is an industry that you're going to spend the next 30 years working in, because of a lot of what you said. It becomes part of, your fabric, I think, a little bit because of the social nature of it, the different opportunities on whether you work in wine, beer, spirits, distributors, suppliers, right? There's such a breadth within the industry that I think people can find lots of reasons to stay in. And let's be honest, that the product doesn't suck.
It does not suck one bit. So serendipitous that you found yourself surrounded by these spirits portfolios and brands. So DiSaronno, I think, is probably best known for its namesake, the amaretto liqueur. And as I'd mentioned to you, my father's drink, always, as long as I can remember, it's a Godfather on the rocks, Johnny Black, DiSaronno, 50-50, couple rocks.
Nice.
And it's become it's an old school classic cocktail. And as far as engaging today's consumers, DiSaronno went viral for a very unique recipe called the Dr. Pepper, in which you pour the amaretto into a bottle of beer. I've tried it, and it tastes exactly like a Dr. Pepper would. How did this viral sensation come about? Was it planned guerrilla marketing? Was it luck? How did that happen?
Great question. I think like most things viral, the best things don't take a lot of planning, right? And just kind of grow organically among the community of creators and folks that are watching on different platforms. And that's really how that particular Dr. Pepper shot, or not Dr. Pepper shot, but the Dr. Pepper drink went viral, I think 2 summers ago. Really, it was very organic. In my career, I think when you try to develop a viral moment, a lot of times you miss, but you have to be smart as an organization that when that moment happens, can you capitalize on it? And I think that's a learning not only for myself and the team here, but really kind of any team that is in this situation. So we really had nothing to do with the genesis of that. We really kind of tried to, piggyback off of that as we think about reaching out to new consumers. I'm so excited that your dad's a drinker. I hear that a lot about a brand that's been around for a long time, like DiSaronno has. And really our goal is, to continue to engage and enjoy the drinkers that are already fans of the brand, but really recruit a younger consumer for it. And so having those viral TikTok moments like Dr. Pepper drink really helps us introduce the brand to that younger audience and trying to capitalize on that as an opportunity.
Yeah, that's really well said. Working in executive search, sometimes when looking for a marketer, a partner of ours will say, I want someone who, can catch lightning in a bottle and, can really get us a place in the zeitgeist, and somebody who we can go viral. But you're right. It's luck. It's how you handle some form of exposure. And I think you guys did a great job capitalizing on it. I had a lot of fun making Dr. Pepper drinks here in the office.
I appreciate that. I'm as big of a fan of innovation with a little I as innovation with a big I. And what I mean by that is a lot of times people are looking for that home run, right? Like you said, give me that viral moment, give me that, culture setting moment. A lot of times the way you get to those is the little wins underneath that, right? It's kind of the small innovations, the small wins, the developing of your program, your identity. All of those things lead you to when that big moment happens, and sometimes it doesn't, but when that big moment happens, then you're ready to capitalize on it, or you're ready to kind of build off of that and have it be something that is not just a spike in your calendar, but something really that kind of helps move your business along.
Yeah. And I think you said it really well. DiSaronno has a very loyal following of existing drinkers. My father being an example, but being able to capture today's consumers. I mean, the landscape in spirits has changed dramatically over the past few years, in part as a result of the shift in consumer behavior. Gen Z is incredibly tough to figure out, and they are not as eager to drink. They've got functional beverages, cannabis, meditation, whatever Gen Z is doing. Has the viral exposure led to your team better connecting with the new generation of consumers? And how are you adapting your marketing strategy to reach the new drinkers in the market?
Yeah, no, really good question. I'll say this, that you're right. We are a brand. So in 2025, DiSaronno Original is going to celebrate 500 years. The founding of the amaretto category, which was done by DiSaronno, came in 1525. We pay homage to it on the labels of our bottle. And so really excited about, there's a lot of brands that don't make it to 50 years, 100 years. Very, very few can trace their history back 500 years. And the brand that you see today, we're about 150 years old. So it's a venerable brand. It's been around in a lot of places. It's a global brand sold in multiple countries. And I think what we have learned is that's great. And I think that's interesting to a lot of consumers, even younger consumers. But we've got to speak to the consumer directly and relevantly, right? And that's where things like influencers today are becoming a bigger part of the marketing mix in the beverage business. Right? 25 years ago, you needed billboards, you needed print magazines, right? Yeah. And then everything became TV when the advertisement on TV became legal. And then it was Facebook. And the evolution of that today is TikTok, social influencers, to help carry your message, to help, give a little, not legitimacy, but that's what the consumer is looking for and who they're looking to get information. So what happened, I think, in the Dr. Pepper drink moment is it allowed content creators and consumers alike to take another look at this venerable brand, right? And say, okay, not only is that a brand from my dad or a brand that my grandparents used to have in their home, but hey, maybe that's a brand that I want to consider. And it did one of the things that this brand does really well. The strength of the brand is also its mixability. And it's hard to show that on pieces of paper, right? But that's what those videos did, right? They said, hey, take something that many people probably don't consider, which is beer and a amaretto liqueur, put them together, something that tasted really great. So again, I think it's a matter of being open to the new forms of communication and how do they drive a message that's optimal for the brand. And in this case, it's about the mixability of it and how DiSaronno kind of can elevate whatever the drink partner is. In that case,
Yeah.
beer. In the case of your dad, elevating your whiskey cocktail.
And I find it to be so fascinating that you've got a brand that is centuries old, and here you are adapting it to the new consumers, technology. Someone had asked me about influencers. I said, like, I'm a 37-year-old single guy with no kids. I don't know, but there's no denying the importance of influencers and how they spread the word. How do you maintain a balance of authenticity for DiSaronno and the brand and the roots and heritage, while still appealing to consumers, i.e., pouring a couple ounces into a Corona?
A great question, and I think it's a work in progress kind of for everyone that's doing marketing and communications kind of in the beverage industry, right? Because you can't do all of one or all of the other. I think you have to find a mix that helps your overall objectives. And so, for example, we're doing some TV, we're doing some digital, we're doing some social, and the influencers are a growing piece of our mix because we've seen the connection that it can drive. Again, we weren't the ones putting the Dr. Pepper stuff out there, but we saw that it resonated great with kind of that recruitment audience that we're looking for.
Yes.
We love having our established drinkers, but in order to keep the brand vibrant and look at another, 150, 500 year opportunity, we need to be recruiting younger consumers, more multicultural consumers, and introducing the brand to it. And so having influencers play a significant piece of that marketing mix is important today going forward. Maybe not what we did 10, 15 years ago to build the brand. Right. I think one, you have to realize that that's the way consumers are gravitating. When you look across the industry and you ask consumers how they're finding out about brands, number one is still word of mouth, right? Your dad, your uncle, your friends, but that percentage is shrinking, right? And what's growing is the influence of social media and influencers. And even if you look at the whiskey space today and you talk to whiskey drinkers and you ask them how they're learning about different whiskey brands, YouTube experts, Instagram, TikTok, kind of this community of whiskey experts, whiskey nerds, whiskey aficionados. Enthusiasts, right, that has grown online almost exclusively is where people are getting their information. So if you omit that, then you put your brand in a disadvantage versus the competitive set.
Right.
If you go completely in one direction, like only influencers, then you risk a little bit of disingenuousness. Or,
Yes.
the balancing act with influencers is selecting the ones that feel genuine to your brand and the mission you're doing so that it doesn't just feel like a paid commercial. And because you can't control them like a paid commercial, you want them to feel genuine so that they don't suddenly come back with creative that you just hate or that doesn't represent your brand really well. And it's I think a test and learn for most people in the industry right now.
Yeah, that's really well said. Selecting the right influencers and voices to represent the brand. We've been talking about the amaretto liqueur, but DiSaronno USA's portfolio has expanded tremendously, including the 2023 acquisition of Sagamore Spirit, the Baltimore-based whiskey distillery. Huge fan. They make great rye. The brands you represent also include the Busker, which is the blended Irish whiskey, Tia Maria coffee liqueur, which I used to sell my days at a distributor. How does this diversification fit into your broader strategy for the U.S. market?
Yeah, great question. I think there's two things that are being served in kind of the expansion of the portfolio. One, we're trying to offer consumers more choices in categories that are growing within the spirits industry, right? And trying to see where consumers are and what they're looking for and be able to provide them with a brand that helps, enrich their lives in that area. I think it also, the one thing that I'll say about our portfolio is you look across the board, I think this is still accurate. We're the only supplier where all our brands rate 90 points and above when you look at accolades that we've gotten. whether it's Tia Maria, whether it's the Busker singles collection, definitely Sagamore and even DiSaronno, they're all rated at 90 or above. And so I think that's how we look at the portfolio. We want to provide a super premium portfolio for consumers to choose from. We want some of the better tasting products in the market for consumers to choose from. And then we're always looking for those categories that are growing, including we now have a 100% organic Italian gin called Engine. And as you look at that category today in the United States, a lot of that growth is from kind of craft gins.
Yes.
And kind of smaller brands and opportunities. So now we play in that, and we think the consumers resonate with that. And then, of course, you've got kind of your flagship brand, at least for us on the DiSaronno side, that again scores 90 points and above. And so we're able to provide consumers a lot of wonderful choices with the portfolio that we currently have, and an eye towards the future in terms of how we may grow different categories, grow our portfolio as the years continue.
Yeah, I did not know that every one of your brands scores 90 points or above. Tia Maria, I mean, like espresso martinis the past few years, to say they're on fire, that's an understatement.
Agreed.
And Tia Maria makes a great espresso martini.
It's
for
in the original
you.
recipe.
Is it really?
Yeah, it is. It is. The original recipe out of London, as it was created, included Tia Maria. So we're excited about that.
That's, man, yeah. You guys have the historical placement market cornered. For you though, as the head, yeah.
No, go ahead.
Oh no! Look, what you're going to say is a lot more interesting than what I'm going to say. Please let me hear.
I was going to say it's funny you said that, because I think it's true. I think we've got some legacy brands that are fun again and new again, because I think that's what consumers are looking for, right? They want real brands, they want authenticity, and kind of nostalgia is come back in a big way, right? And so you see that in the cocktail movement, right, where all of the old cocktails are new once again, right? And so that has provided an opportunity for us with DiSaronno sours and with espresso martinis with Tia Maria. And I think the opportunity and the fun part of the job is then, all right, how do we take that opportunity to reintroduce ourselves, have some fun with it, and put some smart communications out there in the marketplace, right? How do we not miss this moment, but take advantage that we have some venerable brands, but they're new again, and the opportunity is new again.
And speaking of opportunity, as the captain of marketing for the portfolio, how much fun is it that you've got sort of these fun brands? I mean, break up the monotony. It's like, all right, let's talk rye, let's talk liqueur, let's talk the Busker. I'm also curious to learn, I believe it was 4 different styles of Irish Irish whiskey.
Irish whiskey, yeah. The traditional 4 styles, so pot still, single grain, single malt, are your traditional styles of Irish whiskey going back to the 1500s. And then the blend is exactly that, right? We take all 3 of those styles and blend them together. Yeah. We're the only distillery that creates all 4 styles under one roof. So under one brand name, and we're very excited and proud of that innovation. But that's exactly what you were leaning to. It's a lot of fun, and being able to tell those stories is a lot of fun. Yeah, I think what we also have to be honest about is, the portfolio is a growth portfolio. We've got a lot of great brands in categories, and we have some brands that are up and comers, in those categories. And what that does is provides a challenge where, how do we make sure consumers get to know the brands, and more importantly, get to try the brands? Because today, if you're not driving liquid to lips, I think you're missing the mark in this business. There's too much competition. Absolutely. The fun side of that is you can't break anything, right? And so, you can test new categories, you can test new mediums, you can test different communication opportunities, because you're not going to ruin everything. So you can have some fun with this portfolio, and I won't say it takes the pressure off, but it does infuse a lot more fun in what we do to try and compete with the big guys and stand toe to toe with them in front of consumers.
That's great. I did want to congratulate you, because you recently became a board member of the Louisville Hispanic Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, thank you.
I think it's incredible, and with an emphasis on really accessing new consumers and diversity, not just on the side of leadership and the suppliers and the teams producing and getting the product out there, but also consumers. How do you see the spirits industry evolving in terms of diversity and representation from the supplier side, but also, the consumer side?
Yeah, I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity still left for this industry in that area. When I started in 1999, there was very little diversity at any level, right? If you went to the distributor side, you went to the supplier side, even the agencies that were helping, create all of the work around the spirits industry. I think it's great for our industry that has changed. You see more diversity, especially at the supplier level, because they're representing communities, and so they're beginning to look more like those communities. You look at a California, you look at a Texas, you look at a Florida, you see diversity there in salespeople and sales leadership that you didn't before. I think on the supplier side, there's still an opportunity, and I think why there's an opportunity is we should just be focused in consumer segments as our consumer opportunity, but also the opportunity to bring diversity of thought in how we approach the brands, how we market the brands, how we talk about the brands. And I think that can all be positive. If you look today, you mentioned it, in our portfolio, we've got gin, we've got Irish whiskey, we've got American rye, we have Italian liqueurs. And so it's hard to have such a diverse portfolio and diverse perspectives from the brand side and not have people that can kind of represent that really well. So I think we're always just looking to be open at the next opportunity, how we can do it. My involvement with the Louisville Hispanic Chamber of Commerce is both, kind of a passion point and an opportunity for me to give back to a community that I'm very proud of in Louisville, and that's growing. And then obviously Kentucky is the epicenter of whiskey in the United States. And so leaning into the whiskey community is also an opportunity. And I think it's being recognized. I know that DEI is a challenging area in today's world, but I think overall still continues to be an opportunity. We need to connect our brands in meaningful ways, and we need to connect with a wide array of consumers as they're interested in. And there's plenty of consumers, and there's plenty of brand opportunities.
That's really well said. I think diversity of thought is a really important term. I've been a member of Women of the Vine and Spirits for almost 8 years now. I was at the Discus conference last March and going again this March. And Dia Sims from Pronghorn had a really good statement. She said, we're not going to flip a switch and our industry is going to look different. It is a multi-generational approach to infusing diversity, and diversity doesn't always mean gender, ethnicity, etc. So diversity of thought is incredibly important. There was an instance many years ago, a supplier said to me, we need a CMO, a chief marketing officer, but it's got to be a woman. And I said, okay, why? And their response was, well, the rest of the C-suite team were men. So it's not a good look if we're all men. And my response, I remember it was the first time that I made a statement like this and said, look, you said that to me, your recruitment partner, that's fine. Don't ever say that again. Last I checked, 70% of your consumers were female. Don't you think that it makes good business sense to put a female in the position in which has the experience, the understanding of the female consumer and what drives them to purchase, really tapping into and trying to mirror your consumer base, and then also adding in diversity to be able to go beyond scratching the surface on a particular demographic to expose them to your product.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree with you more. I think also sometimes we get stuck in the immediacy of things, and I agree with her statement about it won't change like a light switch. I think we also have to think a little bit about diversity of where we bring in resources, right? A lot of times if we're thinking of new consumers, like I mentioned on DiSaronno, we want to recruit younger, more diverse consumer. If that's not our forte today, then who are partners that we can recruit that gives us that insight, that help us get smarter in that? You talked about, Women of the Vine, same thing, right? Kind of where are those resources that also are more diverse in our current teams to help us be smart business leaders and make smart business choices. I think there's nothing wrong with doing the right thing because it's the right thing, and also it helps us grow our business. I don't see those two things as being exclusive. Still see them
Yeah.
as being very complementary.
I think at the end of the day, what organizations are looking at are the dollars and cents and your sales and margins, and really understanding your consumer and what's important to them is something important to keep in mind always. You know, we had kind of touched on earlier 2023, 2024, and here we are in 25. It's a challenging landscape for the alcohol industry. I think you've got post-pandemic normalization in which a lot of product was oversold to the distributors or retailers, and depletions haven't caught up. Shifting consumer behavior, especially Gen Z. The World Health Organization, Surgeon General coming down on alcohol for health risks. In this period of time, how is your team being optimistic? What are you guys most optimistic about for not only the spirits industry, but the DiSaronno portfolio, and how to really excel as far as brand awareness, points of distribution, and overall victories?
Yeah, no, a lot there to unpack. I'll give you my personal opinion on the industry first in terms of that question. You're 100% right. I think the industry in general is being very challenged in ways that it has never been challenged. I'll add also the amount of brands that are now part of the industry, right?
Yes.
There are hundreds and hundreds of brands, which was not the case 10 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago, certainly not 20 years ago. And it makes it, in some ways, more opportunistic for consumers because they have many more choices, but it makes it a lot more difficult for us on the distributor side, on the supplier side, with that many brands to have to deal with. But I still think this is one of the best industries, and long-term still has a tremendous amount of growth. I'll take what is potentially a threat today, which is the amount of brands entering the market, and say the flip side of that is there's a tremendous amount of innovation within spirits, right? There is the development of new brands, new processes, bringing more technology into the distilling process. It's a double-edged sword, but even the amount of celebrities that get involved, and it raises the visibility. It continues to get people interested in spirits overall. And it almost doesn't matter how you get into the category, whether it's tequila or whiskey or gin or cordials. But once you're in, you can explore and then you can grow. And so I think long-term, we're still in one of the best industries. The old adage, I'm sure you've heard, right? You drink in good times and you drink in bad times. And so, this is a industry that still is going to be here for the very long term. And I think we should be optimistic about that. We're in the middle of one of these periods that is challenging, but that too will eventually ease a little bit by different factors. The economy will continue to improve. Consumer confidence will continue to improve, and then spending and people's confidence, usually when they're confident, they come back to spirits in a bigger way than maybe they are doing today. I think that's the difference post-pandemic, right? To your point, everybody was shopping maybe more than they needed to, maybe more than they normally do. We're kind of living the aftermath of that, but as things level out and confidence comes back, I think people will begin to explore again and spend more. So you take that. Sorry.
No, I completely agree. And a changing of the guard at the White House, and, the uncertainty of who is going to win the election. So, I do think that things are going to get worked out.
And the second half of your question is I try and share that optimism with my team in a very realistic perspective, right? We had a meeting just about a week or two ago, and the first thing I said is, we all understand what a tough year 2024 was. We all know that those external factors haven't completely gone away. Just because the calendar changed didn't mean the environment necessarily changed. So we have to be realistic about where we're at and what we need to do. But we have to be optimistic that we're still representing really strong brands, and we still have a portfolio that people are interested in. So control what we can control. Let's have some fun. Let's be aggressive in our day-to-day approach around the business. And I think that'll serve us well. At least I hope it'll serve us well in 2025, because we certainly can't control all the externals, but we also can't give in to all of the externals. We still have to believe in our plan. And I think similarly to the frame of mind that many of us, yourself included, learned through the pandemic, you have to believe in your plan, but you got to be ready to pivot if the world closes, right? And so
Yeah.
that I think is good things to kind of keep in mind. Believe in the plan, work the plan, but don't be afraid to pivot if factors warrant it.
Your leadership style is one. Like, where were you when I had some lousy bosses? I love that you're realistic and transparent and candid, but also, there's sort of that motivational coach of, we can't let it get us down, and we're going to do the best we can here. And pivoting and being nimble is so important post-pandemic. I can't tell you how many organizations, they were just, I don't think anybody saw it coming, but it was wild that organizations of all different sizes were just caught so off guard and had to be reactive instead of, I think nowadays companies are trying to be more proactive. And part of that is building a strong team and putting an all-star team on the field every day. And whether that's evaluating where there are opportunity gaps, whether it's digital or social media, bringing someone in for that. Or look, sometimes the person who is right for your organization last year, 10 years ago, might not be right for where the portfolio is presently and where you're looking to go. So I really appreciate that sentiment of optimism. And something that will resonate in my head is we have to acknowledge what, the environment is like, but we can't let it dictate how we work.
I think and I appreciate the kind words. I've had a lot of great leaders. I've had a lot of great mentors. I've been shaped by a tremendous group of individuals. I think the two things that have run together through all of the people that I look up to in this business, and I hope I emulate a little bit to my team, is you said it earlier in your statement, this is an industry that's easy to be passionate about. And so if you're passionate about what you're doing, you're passionate about what you represent, you're passionate about who you work with on a regular basis, doesn't make it easy to get through the challenges, but you approach them in a different way, right? You bring that passion with you to your work. I think maybe that's what sets up our spirits industry, beverage, alcohol, up a little bit different than, people selling widgets. Because, if you're not passionate about your widgets, it's kind of hard to fight through the challenges. If you're passionate about what you do and who you do it with, again, you're not ignoring the difficulties, but you're a little bit more ready for the fight, right? To kind of get into it.
Yeah, that's very well said. Ed, I have one last question for you. It's a very important question. What is your go-to cocktail or drink and why?
Yeah, I think that's such a fun answer. I've been lucky that in my career, as you mentioned, I've gotten a chance to work beer. I've had a chance to work whiskey, tequila, and cordials, a little bit of everything. I think I'm a whiskey guy at heart. I think the first thing I think about drinking is whiskey. Today, it's Sagamore Double Oaked on the rocks. I love that. It's a great tasting product. That double oaked is really kind of hits a little bit of that sweetness that you want in a rye whiskey. So I think if I'm drinking anything, it's probably whiskey and it's probably Sagamore Double Oak. But I'll tell you what I've just gotten into in the last year or so, getting to represent DiSaronno's, is really an appreciation for cordials. And my go-to drink on that side is a DiSaronno's Spritz. It's light.
Really?
It's refreshing. It's easy to drink. And it's kind of opposite of the spectrum of, a whiskey on the rocks. And that's really caught my attention, and I've started making a little bit more of those and enjoying a little bit more of those. So that's kind of where I'm at, kind of the tried and true whiskey drink, because that's kind of just where I've been over the last 20 plus years. But really finding something new in an old brand like DiSaronno that I wasn't familiar with has been a lot of fun. It's been fun to play with that brand.
I'm sure. Ed, you've been so generous with your time. I really appreciate you swinging by, checking in, and sharing a bit about your background and DiSaronno's approach to the future, but also very, very deep nod to the past with the legacies of these brands. So thank you so much, and I look forward to being in touch soon. And
thank you,
have a good
Gary. I
one.
really appreciate the opportunity. This has been a very enjoyable conversation for me, and I'm glad that you saw something that piqued your interest. And I'm again thankful for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ed. Take care. I'll talk to you soon.